Hello everyone. Today I'm really excited to be bringing you a new video. Oh, and I guess I did my intro wrong, which is not a very interesting intro, but I am 10 types. Yay. Anyway, today we're talking about GLC. That's right. GLC is a really interesting format. For those of you who don't know, it's singleton, so one of each card, single prize, and non-rule box, as well as mono type, so you can only have one type. That's pretty obvious looking at the different decks. And today I'm actually going to, this might become a series, it might not. I'm looking at the past week's worth of tournaments, I guess, like online tournaments, and these are all the decks with winning records, so the quote good decks. And yeah, we have one of every type except for three of the types. No fairy, unsurprisingly, because that type's bad. Fighting, which is also bad, and fire, which is also kind of bad. Fire isn't terrible, but doesn't have any amazing options. The rest of the types have some pretty good things. But yeah, I'm going to be looking at the different decks. So we have 8 decks, I believe, unless I miscounted. It looks like I didn't, though. And they're really interesting. Some are doing very simple ideas that we've seen before, but starting things off with a darkness deck. And also, a lot of people don't know the Pokemon TCG types. Is something I learned. There are 10 types. Well, there's technically more. There's fairy, but the 10 types we have. I forget the order, but you have grass, fire, water, lightning, not electric. It's lightning, psychic, which includes some other types. You have darkness, not dark. A lot of people say dark. A lot of people abbreviate it dark, but a lot of people don't know the type's actually called darkness. There is dragon. There is fighting. There is metal, which some people call steel, and colorless, which some people occasionally call normal. That's pretty rare. You don't really hear that too often, but it's definitely colorless and definitely a metal. And I think that's it. Did I say lightning? I think I said all the types. Anyway, so those are the types. Oh, that is also, there are 2 darkness decks. Never mind. So one of the types does not have, uh, another type did not show up, which I forget what type that is. Looks like it's water actually. So water has a lot of good stuff. But anyway, let's talk about darkness first here, or dark as it's abbreviated. We see light part. Obviously, it's really good, just good 1-2. Aside from that, we see a lot of different things. This list here is the quote simple list. Um, yeah, and so this one is just focused on powering up Guzzlord, 120 for dark, colorless, or darkness, colorless. Now I'm gonna say dark in the video, and I'm gonna get flamed, but and deservedly so. But anyway, so that is pretty good, not amazing, but once you attack and if you take the KO, you take an extra prize, which is kind of broken. There are ways of boosting its damage, but nothing too crazy. Mostly, however, what you want to do is get energy on, and the way you have to do that, you have a few different ways. First of all, Galarian Moltres accelerates energy to itself on play, but from there, you can then turn it into Guzzlord, and this is pretty interesting. You have Nanu and Thornton, which are the same. Nanu's only darkness, but yeah, and then Ninja Boy, and so they all kind of swap out your Pokemon, and this will allow you to use Guzzlord by powering up Galarian Moltres, and then you get 2 darkness on with Galarian Moltres, 2 basic darkness energies, and then you can attach manually a double colorless energy or a twin energy. The list doesn't run double turbo because you reduce damage, and dropping down to 100 is it's much worse. Aside from that, we have Sableye to recover, Veltal, which is an okay attacker, and it's a pivot. It's just a pretty decent low range attacker, as well as I said, a pivot. You do have Rare Kitty and Hydreigon as well. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and attach any number of energy you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. Then you discard the other cards. So obviously, if you have energy on top, which you can guarantee with Mallow, um, that might be the only way to guarantee it, but that's still pretty nice. Then you're accelerating a bunch of energy, which is obviously really good because you need to be doing that. You have Beast Ring. You have to play Beast Ring, right? Does it not run Beast Ring? I might have missed it. I feel like you would run Beast Ring because it's really good. Or Beast Ringer, I guess. Yeah, Beast. Oh, it is Beast Ring. Yeah. Anyway, maybe this doesn't run. I feel like you would play that. But anyway, and you have Dark Patch. Um, anyway, so the idea is you just accelerate energies. I feel like you definitely would play B-String, which accelerates energy, but it looks like it might not be here. As I said, there's a lot of stuff because it's all singleton, so I might be missing a card. You do have Max Elixir as well to accelerate. But yeah, the main idea is accelerate a lot of energy, and you can attack with Galarian Moltres, doing 50 more for each prize your opponent's taken, base of 20. Um, Instead, there is Sableye, so you can kind of preserve resources as well. And for the most part, it's just very simple. This is probably a deck I'm not a big fan of because it's so straightforward, but and still good. Also, you do have Visir and Heavy Ball. I think that's the only way of accessing your prizes, however. But overall, pretty solid deck, pretty straightforward, but pretty powerful. Next up, this list does run Guzzlord. It runs in this one, oh no, it also doesn't run Beast. Oh, it does. No, it does run Beast Ring. Um, yeah. So what this card does is it says on your opponent's 3 or 4 prize turn, search your deck for up to 2 basic energies and attach them to one of your Ultra Beasts, then shuffle your deck. It's kind of like Mirage Gate. It's a little worse than Mirage Gate, but still pretty good. Aside from that, we have Lipard, we have Hoopa, which can, if it swings into the active, which we have a few ways to do, which we'll talk about, then you hit 90 for 1 darkness on a basic, which is insane. Spiritomb, also, in my opinion, a little bit of an underrated card. It's a very good card, but it building Spite lets you put damage counters on it, and then you can use Anguish Cry to do 30 for each damage counter on it with a base of 10, which is pretty good, potentially hitting more than Hoopa, and it's a bit of a threat. Of course, if your opponent has any form of spread, that's bad. Also, Fighting Fury Belt and Hustle Belt. Well, no, Hustle Belt doesn't give you more health, but Fighting Fury Belt does. And if you go beyond that 60 HP with Fighting Fury Belt, you can, and you won't get knocked out. But then, if your opponent removes the tool, you will die. Aside from that, it does play Frozen City and Hustle Belt as well as Rainbow Energy, and yeah, that looks like what you have to power up Spiritomb to get damage on it to boost your damage. And then you do have the Guzzlord stuff. You do have a double colorless, and it's kind of split between those two. Plus, as I said, Hoopa, and you can switch in Zoroark. Its ability lets you swing into the active, or just switch into the active. Then you can put on a tool like Floatstone, or does it not run Floatstone? I feel like you should run Floatstone. Um, Again, I could be missing it. Limitless sometimes sorts weird, but it seems like it should. I don't know. I feel like you should always run Floatstone. It does run Air Balloon, but there are definitely situations where you want Floatstone over Air Balloon. Not too many, but a few. Anyway, you have switching cards, and you're probably putting that on Zoroark. Aside from that, oh, you do have Raihan. I didn't mention Raihan here, because it's not in here. I feel like I guess Raihan isn't super consistent, but Raihan is a good card, and it gets you free energy, and then you do have Weavile. Weavile is a really cool Pokemon with Evil Admonition, which does 50 for each, 50 for 1 Dark for each ability on your opponent's Pokemon, or for each of their Pokemon that has an ability. So if for some reason they had multiple, it would be doubled. I don't think that's a thing in GLC. I could be wrong, but I can't think of any Pokemon with 2 abilities in GLC. But anyway, so that can hit really hard for 1 energy. So you just have mostly 1 energy attackers with Guzzlord, which you can kind of slowly power up in the background, or burst into play with Dark Patch, Raihan, Beast Ring, a double, the double colorless energy, and a few other things. Also, you have Dark Claw, 20 free damage, yay. Everything else looks pretty straightforward and simple, normal trainers and stuff. If you want me to do an overall GLC video, I'd love to do that, but right now I'm not going to do that. Oh, it runs this Alone Meowth, which can do 70 for free, turn 1 going second, which is good, I guess, but it's not broken or anything. But it's annoying to have to deal with, I guess. But, it just attacks once, right? Um, Next up, we have Psychic, which is a Lost Zone focus list. This one, I don't know. To me, this deck is, again, just another pretty linear deck, kind of like the first list we looked at, but you do have Lost Zone to power up Sableye, pretty much just Sableye. The list doesn't run Mirage Gate. It looks like it doesn't. But you have Sableye, and then you can place 10, or sorry, 12 damage counters any way you like. If you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, you have tons of ways to do that. You have Colress's Experiment, which you can recover with the Baynet and Meowstic can search it out. On top of that, you can recover it with Mewtwo. You can recover it with a bunch of things. And then you also have Comfey. You have Marshadow for Disruption. You have Mimikyu to copy one of your opponent's Pokemon. Gengar is just like essentially it's a stage 2, but it's also basic. It's pretty interesting. You can't start it, which is pretty cool as well. It's a pretty good card all in all. Mew can kind of set you up, but mostly it's there to copy an attack, allowing you to kind of reuse Sableye, potentially Mimikyu as well. An interesting setup attacker here. We have Oricorio, the other Fusion Strike Oricorio, the psychic one. Mixed call, search the deck for a Pokemon supporter, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This is obviously good, so you can get your Colress's Experiment. Hopefully you don't prize your Colress's Experiment. I don't. Oh yeah, and you'd have Gladion to get it out of the deck. I would use the Hexamaniac as well, which is pretty disruptive. I don't remember if it was in either of these lists. I don't think so. No, it looks like it wasn't, but it's annoying to have to deal with, especially when your bench is just getting destroyed. We don't see Blacephalon. You don't have much energy acceleration at all in this list, so that makes sense. And you do have some spread with Spell Tag or Psychic Energy. It's not spread, but it's kind of spread. And of course, Sableye itself. Leading into that, the one thing I don't love about this list is Lost City, which honestly, in my opinion, Lost City super underrated card. It can be it's really hard to play with, but GLC is already a very difficult to play format. So to me, I would put it in. And it can be very good against a deck like this, or a deck like the Guzzlord deck. And if you lost on their Sableye or lost on their Guzzlord in this deck, then they're in a really horrible position. And so that's why I think Lost City would be very good. And for this deck, Lost City is very problematic. Once you stabilize down, you have Mimikyu, you have Gengar, you have that's it pretty much. And neither of them are particularly good. They're not terrible attackers, certainly. I mean, they are in the deck and they are in the deck for a reason, but they're certainly not amazing. So that's why I would play Lost City to counter something, or to counter decks like this, to counter Guzzlord, stuff like that, and other things. But even in a deck like this is a Lightning list. If your Flaffy gets Lost Zone, that's not amazing. But looking at Lightning, Lightning is my favorite type, I guess. I don't love I like this build. I don't like Raikou Amazing Rare, not because I think it's not fun, or not because I think it's bad, but because I think it's kind of not fun, kind of linear as well. It's kind of like that Guzzlord. It actually plays very similarly to this Guzzlord base deck. If you're playing that Raikou Amazing Rare deck, it's slightly different. I'd say about as fun, but pretty straightforward. To me, not as GLC-ish esque. I don't know. It doesn't feel as much like what GLC is supposed to be, but this deck does. First of all, we have this Electivire, which is kind of interesting. This one is seen play at times and not seen play at times. It's pretty cool. It says the first attack's pretty bad, but 140 HP on a stage 1 and Electrified Bolt, which is 180 for 3 lightning on a stage 1 if you have special energy attached. The way you can do that is with counter energy, easier, but then you do have speed lightning, flash energy, and capture energy. Flash energy is kind of not very good. It removes your weakness, but to be honest, if you're up against a fighting deck, one flash energy won't be making too much of a difference, so I don't think it's super powerful, but it is a lightning special energy, which can be useful. Aside from that, there is no Zeb Striker. I'd 100% say played Zeb Striker in every lightning list. I guess you don't necessarily need it, but I feel like it's good. But you do have the Magneton, which can like knock yourself out and search for 3 supporters. It's not great, but it is an option. But then the Magnezone to play 2 supporters every turn, which is super sick. Probably one of my favorite cards ever. I actually don't know if that's true. It's really fun. It's kind of broken as well. It's really good in control. I feel like in standard it's pretty fun, although it wasn't very good in standard. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't very good. I'm not sure if there are really any standard lists that played it. But anyways, okay, we get sidetracked. There we go. It's a pretty cool card. You can attack with it, but it's not very good. And then you have Flaffy to accelerate energies. Raichu, which conserves energy, accelerates it to yourself. It acts as if it has EXP share. You have Tapu Koko as a pivot into Zapdos as well, which is pretty good. Luxray, if you start it's good. You can only start it if it's in your opening hand, though. As the active as well, it does need to be in the active. And if you take mulligans and you draw it off a mulligan, you can't play it. Zeraora is so yeah. I'm not a big fan of Luxray. You have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other basics or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I know it's kind of cool. It's good if you start, but it's not even broken if you start it. So I don't know. Anyway, we do have Zeraora though. This Pokemon, in my opinion, super underrated. Discharge. I hate that they gave Zeraora Discharge. It's just weird. But you do 50, discard all lightning energy from this Pokemon. So it does 50 per. Um, 50 per each lightning energy you discard. You need to get rid of all of them. It does have a retreat cost of 1, but you need to reattach and then to get out of there. It's pretty decent. You don't have electric. You don't have a ton of acceleration. You don't run electric generator, which isn't that good in GLC, but you don't run it. But yeah. Oh, I forgot red card is in this format. It's kind of broken. Yeah. But people don't play like it can be broken. It can be really annoying to deal with. But there's a lot of disruption. There's uh, Delinquent, which is again banned as well. Discard any stadium in play, either yours or your opponent's. If you do, your opponent discards 3 cards from their hand, which is insane. You compare that with Mars Note. You compare, I don't know. There are ways. It's really disruptive though. If you got red carded and then delinquented, or let's say even worse, you got Are there no hand disruption cards? I would assume like regular hand disruption cards. I don't know. If you get like Ionu'd into Delinquented or something, that's really bad. If you get no, you can't get double Delinquented. I don't think. But there are some pretty devastating things that can happen here as well. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And so you have disruption. You have healing with rough seas as well. You have as a lot of disruption, startling megaphone. Um, yeah, Hexamaniac as well. I think this is pretty cool. I like some amount of disruption. It's not like horrible to play against, but it's certainly a little bit annoying. And you have this power with Mag Zone to double support it, which is really nice. Next up, we have a Dragon list. This is actually pretty straightforward for Dragon. I guess you run the Gabite Garchomp, which is really good, and Dragonite. They're great setup Pokemon. Garchomp's very powerful attacker. Then you have Salamence here, not as common, but just a pretty generic stage 2, decently powerful. Druddigon, Regidraco, Drampa, three good basics. You do need some ways to power them up. So you have Gapetra, Bog, and Rainbow Energy for Drampa. Drudgeon hits if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, and Regidraco is a decent little draw engine slash attacker. Then we have Noivern 20 to each your opponent's Pokemon, or 120 for 3, which is pretty decent. Then it does run fire stuff. You do run Amela, and plus Raihan, and you run like some you run the tag call package, I guess. Wait, actually, you only have Guzma and Hala. I don't know. I mean, Guzma and Hala is really good, but I'd put Cynthia and Caitlyn in here as well for that value out of tag call. Probably not Mallow and Lana, but yeah, pretty interesting deck that obviously can go ahead and hit really powerfully, but also Dragon type not the most consistent. Next up, we have Metal type. This one, I think we've looked at lists very similar. Pretty straightforward. To me, this Cobalion is really boring. There's another one, there's another Cobalion that's older that's kind of cool, but yeah, this one's fine. I mean, it's nothing bad. Zacian, again, pretty straightforward. Zamazenta, pretty straightforward. Zamazenta is really powerful. Then you have Bronzong to accelerate, Revavroom to draw. Jirachi is a bit of a draw engine. Heatran also draws, and then you have fire stuff. Heatran hits 160 for Metal Fire. You have fire energy. You can get that on with Welder, but you can just attach it. You got the little Among Us Max Elixir, and so you have ways, and then you can get the energy on and hit big damage with all your basics. Pretty straightforward, big basic deck here. You have Wishful Baton to like conserve energy and pretty cool stuff all around. Next up, we have Colorless. This is a pretty boring Colorless deck. It's very good. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of the big basic decks, which we've seen some of. I think previously, a few weeks ago, I made a video talking about big basics in GLC, and they were very good, but they were like, it happened to be that weaker, that recent amount of time that they were better than normal. But here, we see some decks that aren't big basics. This one isn't exactly big basic. It's basic focused, but these two certainly aren't big basics. Or this one, it kind of is. Anyway, this deck is definitely big basic. So the only evolution being Bibarel, which obviously you aren't really attacking with. You don't want to. Um, Pretty straightforward. We do see Mela to get the fires on. Fire is, by the way, probably the best type if you're just having any type of energy in your deck, because there are certain stadiums that interact with it. And then, but not too much to say about this. And lastly, we have a grass list. This grass list is actually super sick, and this is the reason I made this video. First of all, you have Buzzwole, a big basic Kartana, I guess a big basic or something. And Beedrill, if it's the last card in your hand, you can chuck it down. I've played this card so much when it was in Standard. It was absolutely terrible, but it was really funny. Yeah, we have the Torterra, which is really good. Then we have Jumpluff. Um, we don't see the TMs. You can do the TMs with Jumpluff, which is really fun, though, allowing you to attack twice, but Jumpluff just attacks twice, which is pretty cool, pretty powerful. Then we do have Lurantis. The attacks of your grass or fire Pokemon do 20 more to your opponent's active. Pretty nice there. Bit of extra damage, which is nice with Jumpluff as well. Then we have this insane Cricketune. This card is super wacky. I kind of forget what it does. Oh, so it does 30 for one grass. If you have exactly one card in hand, it does 130, which is pretty good. If you have exactly 3 cards in hand, your opponent's active is now confused, which isn't particularly good, but could be useful in certain scenarios. And if you have, because it's also easier to get, if you have exactly 6 cards in your hand, it does 30 to each your opponent's bench, so 30 to all. This is a super wacky card, but a really funny card. It's kind of hard to get to 6 in hand exactly because you need to play a supporter to increase your hand. But it's a really fun card. And then we have Low Kicks, another really cool card. If you evolve this turn, you hit 130 for 1 grass. So you have these decent mid to high range attackers with Kricketune and Low Kicks. You obviously have the insane Torterra, and you have Kartana, Buzzwole for some like basics. But overall, this deck's really cool. So I think GLC is pretty cool, obviously, and recently it's gotten some cool decks. We do see some new cards as well. Not too many, but enough to be interesting. Low Kicks is pretty cool. Not like super new, but Cyclizar new. Yeah, Cyclizar is pretty new. So that's a new addition. This is not the most interesting addition, but you got cool stuff. You got Mela as well, which is pretty new. Obviously, we do have Temporal Forces coming up soon, and I'm going to talk about that as well as I might talk about Standard GLC. Standard GLC is a format that's not played very much, but is obviously something you can play in live. So I should probably address that. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. Commenting as well. Comment down below your thoughts on these decks and any other GLC decks you want me to cover. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.